Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is Joey Galvez, one half of your host of Explain Yourself, and I want to let you guys know about a really cool book from our friend of the show, Eli Shockey. This one is called The Greylock, and it's a story where magic is a commodity. Potions are sold at corner stores. Orcs and dwarves earn a living in cubicles, not on the battlefields. But there are those who resist the house's magic's laws. Branded a criminal and forced to live as a wand for hire, there is a spell slinger they call the Greylock. Check this one out. You guys can pre-order issue 3 right now with code JAN241939, and make sure you guys are heading over to your favorite LCS and letting them know that you want Greylock number 3, and maybe pick up the first 2 issues. You could do that at the Scout web store. So make sure you guys are grabbing the Greylock number 3, JAN241939 at previewsworld.com.
Okay, everybody. I have something really cool to tell you about. If you haven't heard yet about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain here. It's free. There are creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one single place. Now, the way that you can do this is you got to download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm, and then you can get started. It's really fun. We just switched over recently here at All Too Real 2, and I'm enjoying it so far. So be sure to check it out and let us know what you think. Okay, everybody, welcome to the latest episode of All Too Real 2. My name is Michael E. Cullen II, and with me, as always, is
Matthew. Why are we talking like this?
I don't know.
I'm gonna stop. Matthew Haas.
Me too. Okay, anyways, today on the show, we have another All Too interview, this time with the very talented Greg Proops, who most people know from Whose Line Is It Anyway? He was also one of the voices of the announcers in the Phantom Menace Star Wars movie during the pod race. He was the voice of Bob the Builder for years. He's been in tons of things. He was in Nightmare Before Christmas, bunch of different things. But like I said, most people know him from both the UK and the US versions of Whose Line Is It Anyway? It's been part of my life ever since high school when I started watching Whose Line. So
Yeah.
He also hosts the podcast The Smartest Man in the World, and which you should all check out. Before that, he also hosted the Greg Proops Experiment podcast. He's really cool guy. I enjoyed talking to him about basically the stuff going on in the world, and I don't know, it's just very cool to talk to kind of one of my comedy heroes.
Yeah.
So here's my interview with Greg Proops. So, how are you doing during all of this COVID and all of the other craziness in the world?
Well, I go between gibbering and futile anguish and drinking too much. And, you know, my wife is a superb cook, so that's good. She made rigatoni with Tuscan sausage last night. It was off the hook, so I'm
Nice.
lucky there.
Yeah.
And, you know, we watch old movies and but I'm not as I do shows all the time, but I'm having trouble writing. You know what I mean? Like I can talk, but writing is not making it happen for me. So
Yeah.
anyway, you get depressed, and then you realize a lot of people are working really hard, and you have no right to be depressed, and so then you try not to be depressed.
Yeah.
Where are you?
I'm in Toledo, Ohio.
Oh golly!
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's crazy here too, so
Are you guys locked down?
we're on a curfew, not a lockdown, but we've got like a curfew at night for I think 3 more weeks. He just extended it, so yeah.
So are restaurants open?
Yeah, but they close I think they close at 10, so it's still pretty late. I just don't even understand what the curfew is doing. So I think if they're going to lock it down, they should just lock it down.
Well, your governor's on the saner side of Republicans, if there is such a thing.
Yeah.
At least he believes it exists.
That's true, because sadly a lot of them don't.
DeSantis in Florida?
I know.
Wow. And Texas, Abbott?
Yeah.
They're getting everybody killed.
Yeah, one of my best friends lives in Florida, and I always worry about him. I'm like, he's luckily not. He's a musician down there, and he hasn't luckily left his apartment too much, so that's at least good. But
I mean, when you see people in nightclubs and hanging out and stuff, it's just like, wow.
yeah, it is what it is, unfortunately, and I hope that we get past this and not too many more people die. But
It's 3,000 a day now, so it's a little depressing. But yeah,
I know it is. It is. Hopefully, it doesn't get any higher. So on a lighter note, I guess. Could you,
yes, please.
Could you tell me a little bit about how you got started in like entertainment and comedy and everything?
Yeah, I always wanted to do it, and I did all the variety shows in high school. Junior high, I wanted to do it, but I was too shy and too short. And by the time I got to high school, I grew a little.
Yeah.
And so when you're a pipsqueak with glasses, it's kind of hard to get the attention you want. And then out of high school, we went to junior college, and I had a partner named Forrest Brakeman, and we started doing stand-up together. And then we moved to San Francisco, and I did theater at San Francisco State. And when we started hitting all the nightclubs, which in those days were the Holy City Zoo, the Other Cafe, and the Punchline. And then I stayed with it. He came down here and became a sound guy. And I joined an improv group called Fault Line in college. And then in the mid-'80s, we played San Francisco for a couple of years. Mike McShane was in the group, who was in the original British Who's Line.
Yeah.
And then I got on Who's Line, and it all kind of blew up from there. That was probably the best thing that ever happened to me, because I was eventually able to move to England and live there for 5 years and toured and did Edinburgh and a festival. And because of England, you can play Ireland, and because of Ireland, you can play Scotland. And, so
Yeah.
kind of opened. The show plays everywhere, like India, the Middle East. So me and Jeff Davis played India a couple years ago. And
Nice.
it's there's no accidents, I guess, but I was really lucky to get on. And that the producer, Dan Patterson, went to University of Chicago. So he loved Americans. And so one season into it, he decided to bring a bunch of Americans over to do the show. And I got on, 2 of us from San Francisco, Mike and me. Mike got on the year before me, and then I got on the next year. And then he added Ryan and Colin the year after that. So the show sort of took on a different flavor. And I think the English people liked our energy because we jumped up and down and high-fived and stuff. And they all did this, handshakey, sit on your ass thing that they were doing for 100 years. And it's just got blown up since then. I mean, I've been doing stand-up since I was a kid and improv since I was a kid. And we're 40 years into it now. So what can I tell you?
That's crazy. Yeah.
30-something years into Who's Line. My first year on the show was 89.
Yeah, I was in high school the first time I saw it. My drama teacher used to show it to us in class like once a week. She had all the tapes of the British episodes and everything, and showed us it. And we used to try to do the improvs in ourselves in the class. So
right.
So
that's cool.
Was always fun. Yeah. Luckily,
I wish I'd had a show like that when I was little.
I know it was lucky because I think it helped me because I've done a lot of stage work and also film work, acting and stuff, and I think it's helped to know a little bit about improv. And I've taken some improv classes since then too, so I think it does help people a lot.
It's a useful tool, and no matter what you do for a living, because people think they don't know how to improvise, but of course they do. Like when you go to work and you're late and you have to bullshit your boss, that's improvising.
Yeah.
I mean, we're improvising all the time. It's just that people don't look at their life that way, and that's why the no fear element is so important. And also what Keith Johnstone, when I was in high school, it was Viola Spolin, Improvisation to the Actor, and then we got hip to Keith Johnstone's book from England, Impro, and he said, I think the most salient thing, which is you're walking backwards, so you know where you've been, that's all you know, and you don't know where you're going, and so you have to trust that. And I've been a stand-up longer than I've been an improviser, and it informs the stand-up completely. So the last album I made, which by the way I haven't bothered to edit or release, it's been a year.
Oh wow.
That's how
yeah,
this is affecting me. I improvised it. I knew I had a few things I wanted to talk about, and I had a couple routines that were set, but largely I just went at it. And the last couple of albums I made, I've really, really tried to just focus on what I want to say and how I could say it better, but improvising it. So it's hard to remember the routines sometimes because I didn't write them. And they're as ephemeral to me as they are to the audience, But it's a great tool because if you're failing on stage when you're doing stand-up and the audience hates you, you can always come off the script and then just talk to them, and then that'll work because you can improvise. So there's some comics who literally are married to their jokes. They cannot come off the jokes.
Yeah. And
that's how they work. And then there's other comics who are looser. And then there's a few of us who both do improv and stand-up. For some reason, improvisers hate stand-up comedians in general. And stand-up comedians hate improvisers. And I always thought it was hilarious.
That's
stand-ups are selfish, and we have to have a big ego because you take a lot of hits.
Yeah.
So you have to be like a relief pitcher. You have to be able to. You have to get shellacked and then come back the next night and pretend that never happened.
Yeah.
And improvisers don't want to write. So that's where stand-ups are like, what?
Plus,
because it's all about writing with stand-up.
Yeah, and a lot of times when you're improvising, you have somebody else to fall back on. But when you're stand-up,
sorry, did I just mute you?
Just you. I don't know. Did you? Hello.
What the hell have I done here? Sorry.
Okay.
I missed what you said because I accidentally pressed the Surrey button, I think, which I hate.
No, basically, I was just saying that, like with improv, at least you have somebody else to fall back on. And with stand-up,
yeah, you're in a band.
Stand-up, it's just you on stage. So, if you mess up, it's you.
I agree.
So, yeah.
There's a lot of security in having a band because you can always, someone will pick you up if you're having a bad night,
Yeah. So, how did you get discovered for Who's Line? Anyways, I was just curious. Like, did the producers see you, or were they just?
I was in the group I was in San Francisco, and McShane and I were doing a two-hander. We'd write sketches and jokes and songs and shit, and we'd improvise within that. And we were lucky enough to like play with Rob, and Robin would come by our show sometimes
Nice.
and improvise with us. And I was playing in Spokane, Washington, with a split night in Coeur d'Alene, Idaho, which is Nazi territory, as you know. Eastern Washington and Idaho are
jeez.
pretty like anti-masker kind of Confederate flag place.
Yeah.
And I was there with Tom Kenny, who you may know as SpongeBob.
Oh,
SquarePants. And we were at the horrible deli, and McShane phoned me at the condo and said, hey, there's this weird British TV show auditioning, and I only want you to improvise. And I'm like, I cried in my room. And because I wasn't in San Francisco. And then thank God they came back the next year, and that's when I got on. So, because I was getting like booed off the stage by like rednecks in Idaho, and he was getting on the British TV show. So he went to England, he came back and he told me all about it. And I was like, I'm fucking going. So I, auditioned the next time and got on. And then later that year, I went in the summer, and it was quite warm, strangely, for England in those days. I got a tan. Then they did a Christmas special, which was hilarious because it was the worst show we've ever done. And I brought my wife over, who wasn't even my wife then. That's how long ago it was. And I said to her after we'd been there a couple of days, you want to move here? And she went, yeah. So about a couple years after that, I got on a stand-up slot on a variety show called Viva Cabaret. And McShane was hosting it. And then there was another cat, and I got to work with like Tom Jones and shit. It was, it was a proper variety show. They had like magicians and
That's
and
cool.
we got drunk with him, and he sang all night. It was really cool. And because of that, I hooked up with the producer. I phoned an agent in England basically, and was like, I need to come over, and I'm going to do all this shit. And she was like, well, no one wants you. No, basically, they always say no. And randomly, unfortunately for me, a Scottish comedian named Parrot, that's the name he went by on stage.
Parrot?
Willie.
Okay.
Parrot. Yeah, Para, because he's from Motherwell side of Glasgow. And Glasgow. He said, do you want to come over and do a tour of Scotland, right? Like he offered me it. And it was Dundee and Edinburgh, Aberdeen. We all sat in a big SUV, like a show. It was called a Shogun. And everybody chain smoking with the windows up. Me and him and a couple other comics did all these gigs in Scotland. And it was, and then he had a gig in Paisley at some bar, Rico's, I think it was called. By the way, I'm still friendly with all of them. Fred McCauley was on that bill, and Fred McCauley's been on BBC Scotland for 100 years. I did his show last year in Edinburgh. I see him every time I go. So yeah, it's nice.
That's cool.
And then that opened up England to me. After I did that was in 92. Early that next year, I got a potato chip commercial in England because Ryan didn't want to do it. And so I went over and did it. And when I did it, I snuggled up to the agents and was like, look, I'd like to come over here and work. So then I did Viva Cabaret. And then I did Edinburgh that year, 93. And then that was that. The next year we moved over. It was like, we just moved. We weren't really legal. We got a flat. We had a bunch of different flats. And I toured the country in 94, 95, 96, and 97. A whole tour around the country each year after Edinburgh. So I did the work,
Yeah.
I did 60, 70 dates every year. And plus I played in London, all the clubs in London, Jongleurs, Comedy Store, Oranji Boom Boom in those days. What was that guy's name? Eugene Cheese had a room at the Shakespeare's Head, I think. I was a kid then,
Yeah.
Yeah. So that gave me the confidence to face any situation, because by then I'd been to Australia and all over England and Ireland and Scotland and Canada and, the US. And so I was pretty confident about not caring whether the audience liked me or not.
So, you've done because you mentioned Tom Kenny and stuff. So you've done a lot of voice work yourself too. So, how'd you get involved into that? I'm just curious because I always
San Francisco.
I find that fascinating.
I wish I was a bigger. Tom is like giant. In Los
Oh,
Angeles.
I know.
I'm friends with him.
Yeah.
And I'm friends with John DiMaggio. And John is also a Titan down here. Phil Lamar.
Yeah.
And I've worked with all of them for years, off and on. I started doing it in San Francisco, just local stuff like Safeway commercials and whatnot. And then in England, I carried on doing it. I did a bunch of ads and stuff whenever they wanted American, Then I got really lucky in the early 2000s. And they wanted a new voice for the American Bob the Builder, or what they call North America, which means Canada too.
Yeah.
And I went in and auditioned, and I was doing all these funny voices. And finally, she came over the speaker and said, "Greg, do you want to just do your voice?" And I said, "Are you insinuating that I have a funny cartoon voice?" And so I did my voice, and I was Bob the Builder for like 4 or 5 years. It was great till they sold the company.
Yeah.
And then one awesome time, I was over with Drew Carey doing a television show, a travelogue show about the World Cup. We were in Germany. It was 2006. And me and Drew were there with my wife and his girlfriend at the time. And we went all over fucking Germany, Mainz and Frankfurt and Stuttgart and Munich. And, it was great. We drove around and we flew around and Bacharach and all the little historic towns on the Rhine where the Lorelei is and all that jazz. And I had done a session of Bob the Builder, which were the greatest sessions in the world. Flew to London, go to Soho. There's a coffee place called Bar Italia that I loved. A big poster of Rocky Marciano over the bar. Rocky Marciano, of all people.
That's funny.
So you get an espresso, and then go to the studio. And we'd work till noon, 1, and then we'd order Chinese food or curry. And the producer was a guy named Pete, and all he and I did was talk about music. Like, he was a music fan, so we talked about Bob Dylan and Steely Dan, Aretha, and whatnot. And then after about a day and a half, we'd finish. And there was a lot of shows. There'd be a stack of shows, They would allot like 2 or 3 days to do it, and we'd always finish it in like a day and a half. So then I'd have all that free time. Nice. So I went and I did a session, and then I went to Germany, and the engineer erased the session by accident.
Oh no!
So I flew back from Germany to London, and of course they were desperate, and I was just amused. They were like, "Oh my God, we fucked a whole 2 days worth of, it was like 15, 18 shows."
Wow!
And so they go, "Will you fly back?" And I'm like, let me think about it. And yes. So I flew back. They gave me a bottle of champagne for my trouble, and I got paid again. So I was pretty excited about that one. That was a good day but they were really nice to me.
That's cool.
And then sadly they sold their company, so I don't have that gig anymore. But that was probably one of the better ones. And then the other best one is in 92. They were making Nightmare Before Christmas in a model shop in San Francisco. Henry Selick was shooting it there, and Danny Elfman was to do the score. So my good luck, they came to San Francisco for a day. Speaking of voice work, and my voice agent gave me this cassette tape and said, "Learn this song, and you can go in and audition next Friday or whatever." They're coming down, or up rather. Danny and Denise Genovi from who produced Nightmare with Disney, and I learned this song, and it's the opening song, "Boys and Girls of Every Age," and so I did all these different voices for it, monsters and shit, and I had to go do like an MTV half-hour comedy hour. This gives you an idea of how long ago this was. In '92, an MTV half hour comedy hour. And I said to the auditioners, may I please go first? Because I have to catch a plane. Can I go? Could I be the very first person you see? Like it started at 11 or something. And so I walked into the room. They hadn't seen anyone else in San Francisco. And I said to Danny, at the risk of being sycophantic and obsequious, I want you to know that the music reminded me of Harold Arlen. And he's like, which one's Harold Arlen? And Denise goes, he wrote The Wizard of Oz. And so I did my audition and I got on the show. And then about 5 years ago, I got a call from my voice agent in LA, and they said, hey, Nightmare Before Christmas is doing a live show with the orchestra in Tokyo. Will you audition? And I'm like, audition? I'm in it. And so I went in the bathroom of the hotel we were staying at in San Francisco. I said to my wife, this is going to be a very painful hour for you. I went in the bathroom with my computer and I sang into it and recorded the same bloody song I'd done in 92. Wow. And sent it back, and I got a call from Danny's producer, Laura, a manager rather, and I didn't go to Japan, but then the next year we did the Hollywood Bowl, then we did Brooklyn, then we did the Hollywood Bowl, then we did last year was the greatest year, which is why I'm never voting for a Republican again, and I never would anyway, but
yeah,
they've ruined the world. Last year we did Tokyo, Dublin, Glasgow, and London at Christmas. We did Tokyo in the spring, and we did Dublin, Glasgow, and London at Christmas time last year with Nightmare Before Christmas.
Wow.
Full studio orchestra, full orchestra.
Yeah.
Royal Orchestra of Scotland, the National Orchestra of Ireland, and the London Philharmonic at the Wembley Arena. Danny, Catherine O'Hare, Ken Page.
Amazing.
15,000 fucking people every night. And, I've never had so much fun in my entire life. I'm standing right next to the conductor. So where I am is here. And the conductor's right there, looking at me this way. So John Malcheri, he's Leonard Bernstein's protege.
Wow.
So he sings the song with me. When I'm singing, it's my song. He'll sing with me. And the violas are right behind me, the strings. So it resonates in your chest while the band's playing. It's just a magnificent experience. I'm not a trained singer.
Yeah.
Can't read music. All the other people on the show are really excellent. They do sessions. They're session people.
Yeah.
So I'm out way underwater, but I'm plucky and I'm loud. And the luckiest part is that Danny wants my voice in the show.
Yeah.
He asked specifically that I come back, because I have the quality of. So I got really, really lucky with that. And Danny we were planning on doing stuff this year.
Yeah.
Not we, but he was. If he wants to do it, it happens. And then, we all got caught with this shit. So he made an album in his studio instead. But I think he was really not happy the first month or two because he's a classical musician and he goes around the world and does concerts. So I think he'd planned on going to, his schedules. He'll go to Vienna, he goes to Germany, and then we do this too with the big orchestras. So he's not. And they were going to do Coachella with them.
Oh wow!
Boingo Boingo, and that got skadoofled. And he was telling me how excited he was to do Coachella at Christmas last year. How he was going to work out and rehearse and all this because they haven't been a band in 100 years.
Yeah, I was like, have they gotten back together since they broke up?
Oh no,
wow,
no. But Steve Veritek from the band is Danny's orchestrator and is always involved in everything. I believe Steve's there for all the Nightmare stuff, and when they do, sometimes they do a Boingo number at the Hollywood Bowl after the show, right?
Oh.
Like we finish the show, do the encore, then Danny come out and do a couple Boingo numbers just for the crowd.
Nice.
'Cause this is Hollywood. And Steve would play lead guitar, and the band. And he's the nicest person in the world. Really a genius of guitar and tech. And we've had the same crew for the whole time. Paul, who does our sound, and Richard and Laura, the managers, and the five of us principal singers who I work with.
Yeah.
So it's really nice. We're like a little family.
Yeah. Well, hopefully Hopefully in
Yeah, I know.
2021 you can come back.
I bloody hope so, because I'm so fucked off we didn't get to do it this year.
I can tell. Yeah, that's too bad. Yeah.
Just because Republicans refuse to believe that the disease existed.
I know.
They're busy selling stocks and shit.
It's just, yeah, they don't care about the people. They care about the money.
Human life.
Yeah.
Nope.
No, they don't care if, grandma and grandpa pass away, whatever.
No, they do not.
No.
Hello, I'm Tom,
And I'm Brian,
hosts of Be Hero Fights.
home of the greatest debates of our time.
We tackle the tough topics such as
Fortnite versus Call of Duty.
McDonald's versus Burger King.
John Wick versus...
Wait, is that really fair?
Nevertheless, join us weekly on Spotify, Apple, Google, and pretty much anywhere you can find podcasts.
And hear the madness ensue.
And as always,
Fight on.
So, another voice you're known for is in Star Wars Phantom Menace. I have to ask you about that because I'm a big Star Wars fan. I'm actually wearing a Star Wars shirt right
Surprise.
now. Surprise! I mean, I'm a nerd, so of course I am. So, but yeah, how did that come about?
Playing in Edinburgh in '96 with them at a beautiful venue called the Pleasance Over the Road. That was a church that they'd converted into a nightclub. In those days, everybody smoking and drinking at tables, and then there were bleachers behind them. So there were tables on the floor, and then bleachers. So beautiful. I played there 2 years. I really loved it. I would go behind the curtain and smoke a joint, and then I'd come on because I had a big fan back there.
Yeah,
and it was just a great show and great fun, and about a 300 seater, which is like perfect for comedy, And then Scott Capurro was a friend of mine from San Francisco. He had a show after mine, but we're both American. And the woman who was casting the Phantom Menace, George doesn't ever shoot in the United States. None of any of the Star Wars have been shot here.
Yeah,
not an inch of footage. All in Tunisia, England, whatnot, and other locations, but not America. And so she came to Edinburgh to scout voices for the podcast. I mean, the pod race announcers, the pod race announcers. And she brought me and Scott into a studio, and she saw both of our shows. And then she asked us to come to a studio in London where we riffed and read from the script and whatnot. And then we got it, they wanted 2 American voices, and we were both comedians. So we threw in all the jokes and,
yeah,
he's got the skills to pay the bills. Ooh, and all that jazz. And
yeah.
so I think she thought it was lively. So then we went to the model shop in Leavesden, and they put these giant prosthetic heads on us. In those days, you had to have straws up your nose, and they wrapped your head in paper mache and to get a mold of your head. And then they cut it off you and made a giant prosthetic head that you had to have attached to you.
Oh, wow.
Now I've had it done since 10 years ago. I had it done on True Jackson, same prosthetic head.
Yeah.
They don't make you do the hostage situation thing with the straws anymore. You get to breathe. In those days, this was the 90s. And since you're a nerd, you'll appreciate this.
Yeah.
The guys who were running the model shop were vibrating with excitement, not because of us, but they'd had Uma Thurman in earlier in the week, and they'd had to do her cat suit for the Avengers movie.
Oh, wow.
So they had her down to her underwear, and they had to wrap her. So they were still talking about how they had Uma Thurman in. And so then came the day, and it was a bright and early call, as I recall, 4:45 or 5 or something. And we went to the studio, and they wrapped our heads. It took a couple hours, and we had coffee, whatnot. And after the head's on, there's no more anything, because once the head's on, you're not really going to eat a submarine sandwich. So we go to the set, and George is there, and he couldn't have been nicer. And on a side note, by the way, when he sold the property to Disney for $1 billion, he gave it all to charity.
Oh, wow.
He gave all that money to education in the Bay Area. Yeah, he's a nice person.
That's awesome.
Yeah, $1 billion. He was acting like we were building a model train. You know, there was 100 people standing around. There was 2 giant blue screens. There was a couple of fucking 70 millimeter, cameras.
Yeah.
And George came up and goes, "You guys, have you guys seen the Padres?" And I go, "No, George, it's a secret. No one's seen it." And he goes, would you like to look at it?" And I said, "Sure, George, we'll look at it." So I didn't have my glasses on because I had a giant thing on my head. And I can't see anything, right? Especially in those days. And the video monitor was the size of like an iPhone.
Yeah.
It was, this big. So, and it was a mock-up of drawings, some animation, and some animated still type stuff, right? It wasn't a complete race, but it was, markers. Like a storyboard almost, but animated.
Yeah.
So I had to put my face right up to the fucking thing, this close, because I couldn't see a goddamn thing. And he played us a pod race a couple times. And then I was like, "Well, that was pretty wild." And he says, "Well, do you want to shoot it?" And I went, "Okay, George." So me and Scott got up and in front of a blue screen, right? So we're wearing blue, things up to you can see it online.
Yeah.
The other heads that we were. There's pictures extant of what we looked like. I think I have green headphones on, and I think he has red headphones on. They look like Scandinavian, post mid-century kind of headphones. And we're ugly little bug people, and he, the direction for the race was, okay, both look this way, both look that way, both look that way, both look that way, look that way. Be excited, do this, do that. We read the lines a million times, but you're going to do the lines over 1,000 times. The lines they capture on the day are not the lines that are going to be in the movie. And he couldn't have been nicer. We were there for a few hours. We met Ewan McGregor. He was coming over from second unit. He was working with Frank Oz, who was shooting second fucking unit.
Wow.
And all the props and shit for GoldenEye were there. All these helicopters and Soviet stuff, like from that. Was that a Pierce Brosnan one, I think?
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
And this is Leavesden, and outside of London. And then we went back to my crib. My wife was there, and we ordered Chinese takeout. And we called each other Star Wars all night. Right before we left, Scott, who's pretty bullshit, grabs the second AD and he says, "Hey, is there any swag?" And the second AD goes, "Give me a mo." Blows out, comes right back in. A polar fleece that says Episode 1. Wasn't named yet. It was just Episode 1. So it's kind of like having a Revenge of the Jedi thing.
Nice.
I have something that no one else has. Don't come and steal it. And no, I'm never selling it on eBay or anything. No. But I'm guessing it might be worth something because I don't know how many people have an Episode 1 polar fleece. We wore them home. We were pretty excited. Then I've been lucky enough to be in every subsequent pod race adventure. Lego Christmas, was it? I think there's a Christmas Lego pod race. Couple different video games over the years, starting with the early 90s DVD ones and going into now. There was a Star Wars show called Resistance. They were pod racing in that, so they brought me back but changed the name of the character, which was hilarious. And then I was lucky enough to be in Clone Wars as a bad guy named Tal Merrick. And I got killed in that because I was threatening Princess Amidala with a blaster. And I got another call from the people at, in those days, Lucas, now it's Disney. And so they said, "Do you want to come back and do Tal Merrick?" And I said, "I can't. He's dead." And they're like, prequel, Star Wars prequel. So I did it again. And then, like I said, the Resistance was the last thing I think I did with Star Wars, but I've really been lucky because somehow they keep bringing the bloody pod race back. And I guess what was hilarious is I had to go in and audition for it. And I did all these different voices. I did Scottish and French. And then it took a couple months, and I was like to my wife, I am the character. How come they don't just use me? You know, like, why am I? And then, of course, they did. Like, they were just getting ready. That's all. They were prepping.
Nice.
But I thought, you're going to find someone to do my voice. So, yeah. And then when they restruck it for DVD, like on the 20th anniversary or something, I was flown from Los Angeles to San Diego in a very small plane. So small that the pilot went, "Is everybody ready?" And they took my bag away from me. That's how small the plane was. I was able to keep my book. I had a book. And then we drove across the border, San Diego, to where they shot Titanic, which is called Fox Baja. And we went into a control room. I mean, a conference room. And there was an Apple Mac and a microphone, and that was it. And a bunch of people sitting around. And we redid the whole movie again.
Oh. And
then I did a bunch of shout outs for people. And then one of the cats from that session, I've done a video game with, Pod Race one. And he said, "Do you remember that session?" I said, "Yeah, we had fish tacos and we were standing in a room with one fucking microphone and a computer." He's like, "Can you believe it?" Like, that was how. Oh, you'll like this. When we were finishing up in London before got released, what year is Phantom Menace? 97?
I think so, somewhere around there. Yeah,
96?
97, 99,
8?
somewhere around there, something like that.
Yeah, well, it took a million years to make, of course.
Yeah.
Like Nightmare. I was brought back to Soho. Happened to be in England, and they brought me back to do all the Foley, right, the ADR, and they had a phone in a cradle, and the guy in Marin at Lucasfilm, listening, right? All he could do was approve the session. I was there with British engineers, so we did all the line scan, blah blah blah, and after every pass, he would go, "Brilliant, moving on." And finally, after the fifth or sixth one, I was like, "I'm not that good." I go, "Can I ask a question? When does the movie open?" And he goes, 10 days. So every pass I did on the final day of recording for them was golden.
Yeah.
And that's, I believe, what they used in the movie. And so, because they had 10 days to assemble that and then distribute it to the world. And then, in those days, cans of film.
Yeah.
Giant cans of film. So it was great.
Yeah.
I mean,
That's
my agent in England at the time told me not to do it. And she didn't like the deal. And I was like, I'm doing it.
well, yeah. I mean,
And I went to my first Star Wars convention last year in
nice.
Chicago. Which, again, something that we're, now we can't do.
Oh yeah, unfortunately.
And I got to, I had Star Wars stuff and Nightmare and all the nerd stuff that I'd never gone to one, so I quite liked it. I bought a big stuffed Chewbacca, and I got to meet Peter Mayhew, which was really cool, and all the people from all the cartoons and shit were there. It was I enjoyed it.
Nice.
Now, of course, the thought of being in a room with 10,000 people,
Yeah.
it's like makes your flesh tingle.
Yeah, I'm a film director myself. I've done a couple conventions just to sign DVDs and give them to people, and I just think about that and I'm just like, yeah, there's no way that could ever happen again anytime soon, which is sad.
No,
Yeah,
not for a while.
yeah. Hopefully soon. I mean,
I think so. I mean,
Yeah.
Australia's having stuff, and Korea's having stuff, and Taiwan is back online. It's really a matter of crushing it, and
Yeah.
it takes a year to crush it. You have to
Mhm.
trace and test everybody, and you have to. The vaccine's going to help a lot. I mean, we just like
Yeah.
we We know what the deal is.
I know.
They knew, and they didn't do shit.
Exactly.
And it's malfeasance and it's murder, and that's where we're at. We just have to try to live through this till we can get to Biden Harris, because they're going to have doctors and we're going to have stuff, and
they're going to trust science.
Yeah.
So I've listened to your podcast a few times. How'd you get started doing that?
Well, Matt and Ryan, who have been have a record company called Special Thing, and I've done a couple of albums with them via Doug Benson. That's how I met them, because I've been friends with Doug for 100 years.
Yeah.
And so we made a couple of albums, and then it was right around 2010, and Matt is on Never Not Funny with Jimmy Pardo. Jimmy Pardo really is the one who started the ball rolling.
Yeah.
As what we know now as a podcast. I did a podcast for 5 years on Audible, but it was only available in those days. You put it in like an MP3, or, it was a more limited thing. I remember doing podcasts with Melanie Rivers, Jones' daughter, in like 2004 or 5. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah,
it was around, but it was a private affair. We used to call it radio for no one. And then when the technology got good, when smartphones came out, and when computers you didn't have to download everything onto a device, which you did in the early 2000s. They said, "Do you want to do a podcast?" And I said, "Well, what about?" And we talked about interviewing authors. We talked about a bunch of stuff. And then finally my wife was like, "Why don't you just get up there and talk?" So she was right. And after I did the first one, she said, we got a little hall on Santa Monica over here. Bar Lubitsch holds about 40, 50 people. Said, "We're doing a free show tonight." She goes, "You should be doing this. This is more important than other things." And I was like, "You're right." And that was October of 2010. So we hit our 10-year anniversary in October.
Nice.
Which I like Who's Line. When we hit our 31st anniversary on Who's Line, I was a little blown away. It's also 25 years for Star Wars, and we passed 25 years for Nightmare a while ago. It'll be 30 years in like 2 years. So, but I have a big thing that says 25th anniversary, so
nice.
Fortunately, I've been able to do a bunch of stuff that people seem to want to keep going to. And that's, I've never cared about show business very much. I'm not very good at it, but I've been lucky, and the things that I got on are fun things.
Yeah.
That people like, instead of dreary, awful things that they hate.
That's good.
I've been in plenty of dreary, awful things that people hate that no one ever saw. I was in a movie a couple of years ago where I was the bad guy. It was called Duck, Duck, Goose, and it had a huge cast. The women who produced Shrek made it, and Chris Jenkins directed it, a lovely Welsh man. And Jim Gaffigan was the lead, and Zendaya, and Craig Ferguson, Stephen Fry, Carl Reiner, Diedrich Bader, Natalie, I'm blanking on her name, the comedian who's married to Moishe Kasher. Natasha Leggero. Natasha Leggero.
Yeah.
Reggie Watts. This had a huge fucking cast.
Yeah.
And I was I was a cat trying to kill these ducklings. And Jim Gaffigan was the goose who was pressed into service to look after the ducklings on their long journey. And I chased them across China and tried to kill them. And I thought it was really cute. It's beautifully made, but not, didn't.
Nobody saw it, I guess. Or
well, I don't know. I mean, I get a check every once in a while, but you don't really hear about Duck, Duck, Goose as a timeless classic. And it's a pity, because there was a lot of talent in the movie. I mean,
even if you just had
everybody
half
who did the
of
voices
people.
were hilarious. Craig Ferguson and Stephen Fry played two whooping cranes who were being assholes, and it's one of the funniest scenes in the movie. They're both doing British accents. Yeah, it's just great. And Carl Reiner's a turtle.
Oh wow, that's perfect.
Yeah, it's a good. I mean, it's worth smoking a joint kind of kids movie. Yeah. It is a kids movie.
Yeah, I figured.
And like I say, it looks beautiful. So. And years ago, I was in a movie that's so weird called Hyena, The Prophecy. And me and McShane play like android servants or whatever, and we're being obsequious and yes, master and everything. And the lead of the movie was Richard Bloody Harris, and the lead Kaina was Kristen Dunst. Like the voice talent in this movie was tremendous. It was like, so Richard Harris to the evil overlord, go get me back. You know, like,
oh wow.
So it was great, but like nobody saw Kaina the Prophecy. I mean, like you don't even what?
Yeah.
I think they thought it was going to be like an international. It kind of preceded what's that awful James Cameron movie with Unobtainium?
Is it
yeah,
Avatar or
Avatar?
Yeah,
it had the same kind of plot. There was a tree, and the tribe lived around the tree, and the evil overlord was being a knob, and you know, it sort of preceded that.
It's like I've always said about
again, not a smash. What can I tell you? Like,
yeah, I've always said Avatar is Fern Gully, Last of the Mohicans, and a little bit of Smurf sprinkled in there into a blender.
It definitely has the Smurf thing going on. Well, I just felt like James Cameron didn't want to. He felt like talking down to a video game audience was sort of where he was coming from on that. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean,
I love Alien and Aliens.
Yeah,
and you know, he's a gripping director. There's no question. But,
I mean, Terminator 2 is one of my favorite movies of all time. He's still a great director, but still, it's like, yeah, I just couldn't get behind Avatar. But
at the beginning of the containment, they were showing Terminator 1 over and over, and I watched it a couple times, and it's maybe one of the great low budget sci-fi movies of all time. It's just thrilling, and he does the thing that George Lucas sort of lost as he went further, which is keep the urgency. You know, like nobody walks into a scene like this, and you know, except for the girl who gets killed in the first Terminator movie. When people walk into scenes like this, they come running into scenes, you know, because the level of tension is like just fantastic. And 27 endings, you know, his specialty. It ends, it keeps ending. It's not over.
Do you have dreams that you want to achieve, but are scared to do so due to self-doubt, fear, and other people's criticism? I have just what you need. You need a dose of the Living the Dream with Curveball podcast, where I interview guests that will motivate and inspire you to stop at nothing to achieve your dreams. And always remember, if you believe, you can achieve.
There's a question I like to ask people. If you could give advice to your younger self, like say yourself at like 25 or something, what would you say to yourself?
Well, write more.
Yeah.
Write a book earlier. Study more. Be more serious. Travel more. Learn a language. I would have liked to be fluent in another language. And a skill like filmmaking. The skills are important. They come in handy. I've really drifted from thing to thing, and the only thing I've dedicated myself to is telling jokes and goofing around and performing. So now here we are. And, you know, I've written a book, I have a bunch of albums, I have a podcast, this, that, but I have to perform online like everybody else because it's too dangerous. So it might have been good if I'd written a movie or something. You know, writing a pop hit early in the career is always good.
Yeah. The whole
something you can live off of is what I'm getting at when the going gets tough. You know, I don't worry about. I worry about Danny's emotional health, but Danny Elfman has written so many scores that he obviously it will be fine.
Yeah,
you know, like if you have a giant body of work, and a lot of, you know, I don't regret it, but like I remember something Tom Petty said before he died that struck me as really strange. Peter Bogdanovich did a giant documentary about Tom Petty that was like 5 hours long.
Oh yeah, I saw that. It was awesome.
Yeah, he was on tour.
Yeah,
and it was what it was like to be on the road and the process and what the life is like, and they're smoking backstage and the whole thing.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, at the end of the day, when you've done a bunch of great shows, that's it. All you've got is a bunch of great shows. And I thought, but that's misunderstanding what we're doing. The point of it is to do a bunch of great shows. You're not supposed to capture every moment of your life and lock it in amber.
No.
You're supposed to just carry on. And of course, that's what we're being forced to live in a prison-like mentality. Not that I have to wear a mask. That's not my prison. The prison is nothing can happen right now with people. That's only something we're thinking about that's going to happen, which is what people in jail always tell you. They can't think about now as much. You have to think about when it's over, then my life will be different. So, when you're a traveling ham like I am, it kind of clips your wings a little. So, I might tell my younger self, be prepared for something like that to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like, I can't understand. Like, there's been a couple people came through locally, stand-ups doing like these drive-in shows like over the summer. And I've never done stand-up, but I've been on stage like doing improv and doing comedy plays and stuff like that. I just can't understand I would want the reaction of the audience right away. I don't know how people could do that.
I think you might be able to hear them.
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Hopefully.
And also, at least they're in cars and not like standing next to you.
Yeah.
When we do online gigs through the several places I do online gigs through, we ask people to leave their mics on, so you do have a reaction.
Oh, that's
and
awesome.
Sometimes people are hysterical or talking, or there's a dog or a baby and or a lawnmower or whatever. So we're in another world here.
Yeah, that's cool, though.
I don't mind it.
Yeah.
At least there's the human contact, but it's also, like I say, my wings got clipped a little. The group I'm in with Ryan Stiles, we've been on the road for 20 years together. And last year we did 100 dates.
Wow.
And I did a bunch of dates of stand-up on top of that. And then I did a bunch of dates of Nightmare Before Christmas on top of that. And so I was, traveling a lot. And I probably did 200 days on the road easily last year. And now I haven't been on the road since March 8th.
Wow.
And
yeah.
My wife, as far as my wife and I have gone, is we went to Malibu once to see a friend early on and have drinks from 6 feet away.
Wow.
That was in April, I think. So yeah, I'm
right.
surviving. The idea is to survive. A lot of people have it a lot worse than me. I can't imagine being a healthcare worker or, all the essential service people, because they have to be going mad at this point, literally mad.
And
so, we try to raise money for charity, try to raise money for elections. I've been doing a lot of that. We did a Who's Line thing where I got all the guys to say yes to me and Aisha, Colin, Dave Foley, Ryan. We raised money for Warnock and Ossoff down in Georgia. The campaign they just had. Now they're having another one on January 5th. It's all very important because the future of the world lies all in. But so I've been trying to raise money. Before the election, we did tons of sister state, they're called, where they try to get down ballot people money.
Yeah.
We tried to flip Iowa. I did an event for Wisconsin Democrats. Biden got Wisconsin back, and not in little part to how much money we were able to pump in. Big old comedy special. That one was great fun. It had Mike Birbiglia and nice. Whitney Cummings, and they got every comic in America to do that one. It was really good. So we're trying to be useful.
Yeah. At least there are things like, like Zoom and other, technology now, as opposed to the last pandemic, in the early 1900s, where you would just, you couldn't do this, so at least you have,
if it's any consolation, in the 1900s, people behaved just this badly.
I'm sure.
And the anti-maskers were there. And the public health warden of San Francisco, who imposed a strict lockdown and mask order, They were threatening to shoot him all the time. People were shot over masking.
Jeez.
And it came right off the back of World War One because the troops brought it home, and it lasted 2 years, and 600,000 people died in America.
Wow.
So no one ever talks about it. It's a forgotten part of history.
Yeah.
When I was little, there was the Hong Kong flu. This was 1969 or 70, and it killed hundreds of thousands of people. I got it when I was a kid. That was a plague. It happens every, F1 and N1, Ebola. The difference was we had a health structure in place to contain them.
Yeah.
SARS did not get out of control in North America. We were able to contain SARS, and I went to Canada during that time and came back and still didn't get it. And they removed all the barriers to that structure that was in place, and that's why we're having this shit show that we're having.
Yeah.
It absolutely, we could have nailed it like Taiwan or New Zealand, but it would have required great discipline and groupthink, and America's terrible at being a team.
Yeah,
there's so much selfish white supremacy that drives everything. You can't get us to all do the same thing. It's just horrible.
It's sad. I had to stop recently reading comments on any kind of news story because all you ever see are these Trumpers with their, with their weird QAnon conspiracies and everything. So it's just insane.
It's flooding the information, flooding the zone with bullshit is all they've got. It's really, that's the depressing part, and that's the part that makes us all feel so anxious is what do they call it? The fire hose of lies.
Yeah.
Because it never stops. It's literally just, and there's no rhyme or reason to it. None of it's true. None of it's even true.
Yeah.
And then you hear senators repeat it and really important people repeat it. And you're like, so have we all gone mad? That people who are literally billionaires who went to great schools, who speak several languages, are telling you that electors didn't vote for the right people because a computer that Hunter Biden, give me a break.
Yeah, it's
anything. We'll get through it. I mean,
yeah.
Look, it wasn't better in 1918, like you said.
Yeah.
It took a long time to mitigate. Mm-hmm. A lot of people fucking died. People lost their whole families. There wasn't instantaneous communication other than cinema and telegraph. And what people were really mad about was that they closed the movie theaters and the bars.
Yeah.
That's what they were most mad about, the fucking bars.
But yeah, at least you can watch TV and drink at home, I guess. So
all we're being asked to do is watch TV and drink at home, basically.
Yeah. So, anyways, I don't want to take up too much more of your time. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time.
Let me know when this goes out.
Oh, I will for sure. And thanks for your time. I appreciate it a lot, and I'm a big fan. So glad to finally talk to you.
You be safe, man.
Oh, I will. You too. Thank you. Bye.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, that was my interview there with Greg Proops. Hope you all enjoyed that. Really enjoyed talking to him. Really cool, down-to-earth guy. Kind of feel sorry for him about all the stuff that he had to postpone during 2020. Yes. But, unfortunately we have this sad pandemic that hit the world. And,
and doesn't go away.
Yeah. Hopefully it does soon. Maybe by the time this airs, it will be. I don't know.
We'll see.
Because we recorded this back at the end of the interview back at the end of 2020. So who knows by the time this airs. So anything. And what have you been watching or listening to lately, Matt? Anything cool?
I've been listening to a lot of old Genesis albums.
Awesome.
When Peter Gabriel was the lead singer. So I've been kind of going through their old catalog quite a bit lately. And as far as TV, I was watching The Mandalorian. I finished that like last week or so. Been rewatching the Clone Wars series.
Which features Greg Proops in a couple different roles, I believe. So
Yep.
So.
He was in a couple episodes. Yeah, that. Been rewatching Community a lot. There's a show called The Magicians that I really like. I just finished season 4 of that, and season 5 should be on Netflix sometime in January. Just watching a lot of new stuff. Just try to to get some more creativity going. I mean, I've been watching a lot of the same stuff over and over, but I'm trying to watch some new stuff too. To
Yeah.
kind of get
Yeah, I know how it
open my
goes.
mind a little bit.
Yep.
Yep.
Hopefully, I got to start watching. I'm going to start watching some new stuff. I've been watching a lot of YouTube and stuff, but I also watching again and again, episodes of Superstore and How I Met Your Mother again. For some reason, I decided to start that over again, and
Good show. Him.
Yep.
Him.
Yeah, things that make me feel comfortable,
Yeah.
and stuff.
Well,
Like that.
it does help to watch the same shows again, because it kind of makes you feel safe in a way and stuff like that. So
Yes.
yeah.
But yeah, if you haven't yet, I'm also been watching. I highly recommend Star Trek Discovery. It's really good. If you have not watched that show yet, highly recommend it to anyone. So
Cool.
Yeah, it's probably the best Star Trek that's come out in ages, especially season 3. But beyond that, I don't know. Haven't been really listening to any new music. Will recommend anybody that hasn't checked out Fetch the Bolt Cutters by Fiona Apple to check that out. Probably the best album of 2020. So there we go. Anyways, hope you all enjoyed that interview there we had with Greg Proops, and hope you're all doing well.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, and be sure to follow us on the social medias, the twits, the books, the grams.
The twits. The grams.
Yes. And
all that jazz.
All that jazz. Is that a new one?
Yeah.
And
it just plays like a jazz chord every time you put like a tweet or whatever. It just goes beep beep beep, or like a guitar chord or whatever.
Beep beep ba 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 ba.
That's all it does.
Yes. And
guess what? It's worth $5 billion as a company, because that's how capitalism makes sense nowadays.
Yes. One day we'll get there, Matt. One day. And but anyways, check out our Patreon, everything else that's in the show notes. Be sure to check out Greg Proops' podcast, Smartest Man in the World, and anything else. But beyond that, stay safe. Be good to each other.
Yeah.
Or as Bill and Ted would say, be excellent to each other.
Yeah, there we go.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to All Too Real 2 podcast, a Cullen Park production. Produced and edited by Michael E. Cullen II. Music by Matthew Hawes. Subscribe and share the show. Visit us at cullenpark.com.